This is my second of the combat conditioning style leg workouts. This time I condensed it a little. I skipped some of the exercises. I just got back from traveling after a few days, so I'm kind of gassed and I didn't want to do anything crazy. This time I didn't look at it like I did last time as a strength workout. I was just really looking at it as a conditioning workout. And I think that that's probably the most productive way to do the workouts. I was focusing on not just volume, but in this case, what's called density, which is, in this context, the density of the work that you're doing within a time frame. So another way to train conditioning and muscular endurance is not just to up the reps and like the mileage, it's also just to see how efficient you can become. So an example of training for density would be like, I want to see how many reps I can get in 10 minutes. And so even if I'm doing the same number of repetitions overall, but I'm doing it in a shorter time frame, I'm still improving and progressively overloading. I think this workout was probably closer to what Matt Furey had in mind in terms of how you were going to do the training. I don't think even my longest workouts have exceeded 20 minutes. In terms of just time efficiency and scheduling, it's probably the easiest thing I've been able to do because it's really, really low equipment and it's really a ton of work in a short amount of time. I'd say this is comparable to pretty high rep burpee work. So if you've ever done like a really hard burpee workout, it feels pretty similar to that. The thing I like and dislike about burpee training is that it's a little bit uniform. It's great because you can get really good at something, but it's also, I think when it comes to HIIT and conditioning type workouts, you don't actually want to get that good at the movements. Like you want to get good enough to be efficient and to not hurt yourself, but you don't really want to get good enough to no longer get like a challenging, fatigue stimulus from it. And so I think this is good just because he's kind of, rather than just doing one thing all the time, he's giving you sort of a box of tools to play with. I think you could really rearrange this in 10 different ways. And as long as you're striving for, a cardio conditioning, stamina building aspect, you're going to get a pretty similar outcome. This is definitely one of those programs that kind of challenges your definition of like how fit you are. I think I'm getting a good amount of glycolytic, but I'm going just long enough to get a cardio, like switch over to mainly endurance and cardiovascular. I can feel that abrupt gear shifting in the workout where I'm going from that, more short-term energy source and then kind of shifting gears into the more long-term. That's another thing is like, while this is short, I think it's important to keep a continuously high heart rate even in the rest times. That's the only way you're going to really get enough of like a stimulus in terms of like an endurance stimulus and not just like anaerobic conditioning, because it's really going to take the first 15 minutes just to actually change gears, and then the last 10 minutes are where you're getting that sort of long-term stimulus that you want. I also just want to say that I think the Hindu squats, the more I do them, the more I make sense that they're the centerpiece of the leg training and of Matt Furey's programming in general. Definitely still got that joint insulating effect. I think that the lunges are helping a little bit, but and the jumping jacks are kind of helping the ankles. The lunges are kind of helping the hamstrings warm up. But I think about 90% of that kind of joint insulating that I was feeling, which was allowing me to kind of run and bounce and jump rope without any discomfort, I'd say about 90% that's coming from the Hindu squats. So something I think that's a little hard to convey is that there's a really high plyometric element to the Hindu squats. Maybe not so much in the standard one, but once you start integrating that jumps, it really becomes like an explosive plyometric movement and a cardio movement. I don't think long-term I'm necessarily going to do all of these exercises. I'm probably, like once I'm done with this month, I'm probably not going to do all these exercises, but I do think this is a really good testing ground to kind of get a sample of everything that Matt's programming has to offer, and then decide the handful of exercises that are really productive. I could also just potentially rotate through a few different ones just to keep things fresh and interesting. So I like the variety. I'm definitely somebody who likes variety in my training, and this is a nice way to get some variety in without feeling like you're going so far astray that you're not getting any sort of carryover and improvement into the next workout. I think the Hindu squat stands out to me because it has a stimulus that's really, really different from just about any other exercise that I've ever done. It's kind of like a body weight squatting equivalent of like when you're doing kettlebell, like high rep kettlebell swings. I think if you wanted to just pick your most probably bang for your buck, hey, here's the exercises that really stimulate everything, then I would probably just do this with kettlebells and, you know, maybe some sandbag work. And I think that'd be all the conditioning you'd ever need. One other thing to talk about, though, that is interesting is, so after doing some yard work the other day, my low back was killing me. And so I think my question of whether this bodyweight training enough is alone to fully build up your posterior chain has been answered. I think lower body wise, you're covered once you do the power wheel curls and the squats and everything. Like, I think you can get away with this for your glutes and hamstrings just fine. But because there's really not any, you know, heavy loading on your spine, you're not really getting that much low back training. The appeal of these exercises, you're not loading your spine at all. So I think that's good in that you can fit it into a conditioning workout, and then you can still potentially lift weights and not have to worry about the axial loading on your spine. But I also think it's kind of detrimental in the sense of, like, I don't think you can just do these body weight exercises. I will say, to Matt Furey's credit, though, he has a few partner exercises that I just haven't been doing because they require a partner. And one of them is basically like a good morning type thing, and then another's kind of a fireman's carry squat thing. And so I think if you did those with the sandbag, that would be just enough like axial loading and stabilization work, like of weight under load, that I think you could probably get away with that and very little other weight training.